We got a hunt in the shop with a coolant leak. Let's check it out, see what we got. This is what we're working on today, a 2004 Honda Accord EX with a 2.4 liter engine. The complaint on this is the coolant reservoir regularly has to be topped off. So let's pop the hood, check it out. With the hood open, let's do a visual inspection. Looking at our reservoir, it looks like the coolant level's about right there. I do believe it was just topped off. But right along the top of the radiator and right around the hose here, we can see evidence of a coolant leak. So I believe that is where our coolant is going. We can look around, make sure we don't see anything else. But at the moment, this appears to be where most of that leak is probably going. So let's go ahead and test that with our pressure tester and see if we can see exactly where it's leaking. A little bit of trivia for you. This is the vehicle I did my very first YouTube video on. And it wasn't even in high definition. But that engine mount right there needed to be replaced. And I went and grabbed the only camera I had. And for whatever reason on that day I decided to go ahead and record it and post it on YouTube. And then I noticed like 10,000 of you in the first few months actually watched it. And I thought, well, maybe I'm onto something. But if I hadn't recorded it that day, and if 10,000 of you hadn't watched it, in the first few months, who knows, I may not have made another video, or I may not have ever made that first one and posted it. But thanks to this vehicle, I'm still making videos to this day, which is pretty cool. Because the car is cool, we're going to go ahead and pressure test it, and this is the kit I'm going to use from Astro, the 78585. To do our testing, we'll need this out of the kit, and we'll need this here. For our testing, we'll take the original radiator cap off, like that, and we're going to replace it with this. Now, this thing is cool. This vehicle sat overnight, so it's nice and cool. Don't take this off when it's hot. You will get scalded and burned, and you'll only do that once, believe me. Don't do that. We'll go ahead and connect the pump that pressurizes the system. And we notice we got a green and a red area with a bunch of indicators. If we look at our cap right here, it says 1.1. And what that is 1.1 bar. And if we look, there's 1 right there. So 1.1 would be just a hair over that. Very, very close to 15 psi. So as long as we pump this up and keep it 15 psi or less, we're in the safe zone, we'll be just fine. And then once we pump it up, we'll let it sit for a bit. And we'll look to see if any coolant is coming out anywhere. Alright, we'll leave it right at 1 bar. Right there, we'll let it sit for a bit and we'll look for leaks. And when we're looking for coolant leaks, we can't forget about the heater core. A lot of times when those are leaking, you can smell that coolant inside the vehicle. And if we look closely, hopefully you can see a little bit of bubbling and fluid escaping right there. Not a ton, but just a little bit. And we can see evidence that for sure this hose is leaking right here. And if we follow this upper hose back here, hopefully you can see right there, the hose is definitely showing signs of leaking back there too. So at the very least we know that we need a new upper radiator hose and new clamps. I knocked this chunk of coolant off, oops, right there, and I want to see if it's actually leaking at this seam here. I have a feeling it is, but it could just be drooling down here and then coming over here and kind of pooling up. But we have a couple different spots where it's doing that, and I just want to see if it's going to be a radiator issue also. And looking at our pressure, after about 5 or so minutes, we've already dropped a decent amount. I repressurized it, kind of cleaned this up a little bit so I could see it better, and I can see that it's a little bit wet right here, and where's the other, and a little bit wet right here, and it's dry over here. So I do believe that our radiator is probably leaking also a little bit In addition to this hose, I don't see any more leaks anywhere. So I think that the radiator should be replaced and the upper hose and the clamps, and if we're going to do that, we should go ahead and replace this lower hose and clamps also. Well, looking everywhere else that I can see, I don't see any evidence of any coolant leaks anywhere else. So if it was my vehicle, I'd replace both hoses and the radiator. Now I think most of the leak is coming from this upper hose, but I do believe this radiator is leaking a little bit, and there's no telling when this will just give out, and then you'll lose all or most of your coolant all at once. And out here in the desert, it doesn't take long for these things to overheat once the radiator gives out. If you watch that Civic overheating video, you know that it leaked right there from the radiator. Next thing you know, melted down the engine, blew the head gasket. So I can't see any other leaks. The only other leak that maybe is internally on a blown head gasket, but this car is running really good. It has not overheated, so I don't think that's the case. So I think that's what I'm going to recommend. We'll go ahead and see if the owner wants to replace these hoses and the radiator. That's what I would do if it was my car. Well, that's it for this one. Stay tuned to see if we get this thing fixed or not. And as always, if the video helped you out, you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.